Show continues, heading out onto track here at Teretonga Park. Greg Rust, Ronan Murphy and Stu Owers with you in commentary for this one. It is Pirelli Porsche, New Zealand's third race of the weekend here, and we go, Stu, for 30 minutes of competition in this one, don't we? So
30 minutes with a compulsory pit stop, which ranges all the way from a drive-through or just a stop and go, all the way to 3.5 minutes for the cup cars.
Okay, so they have had a look at performance over the course of the weekend in order to determine the length of some of these stops. So Brian Scott, who's had a pretty good outing here in Invercargill this weekend, will start from pole alongside Daniel Angus. Duncan McCrosty, who was a fast finisher in race 2 earlier today, alongside Nicholas Cutfield from Hawke's Bay. Tim Robinson, another Bay racer, but he's in a 9.44 alongside Matthew Burton. Stephen Fang had pole position when the weekend commenced in the Porsche Boxsters, but it's been Ian Hill who's kind of starred in that class so far.
Yeah, look, and both of these guys are just so close to each other. It's going to be exciting racing watching those two go at it. And
the Boxster category, as Stu will tell you once the action gets underway, is kind of divided into two classes, if you will, based on capacity, isn't it? So there's a couple of battles that happen within the Boxsters that we do need to keep a little watching brief on. So magic conditions here today, Ronan. This is a great racetrack. So we're the southernmost FIA recognised circuit in the world. The next stop, kind of from Areti Beach just beyond us here, is kind of Antarctica. 2.5 Ks, classic old school, great place, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So much heritage and so much history here at Teretonga Park. It's been around a long time, this place. It's certainly stood the test of time, and it's great to see a great grid of Pirelli Porsche New Zealand Championship cars lining up for the third race this morning, Rusty. And it's certainly going to be interesting with those compulsory pit stops, and as Stu was saying, you know, having those longer stops for the cup cars and the faster cars towards the front is going to certainly make it interesting. And I think you said before, around 3.5 minutes for those front cars. So that's about, you know, give or take three and a bit laps for those cars effectively.
So lots of overtaking, lots and lots of lapping, you know, traffic on traffic. It's going to be a challenge for everybody, the slow and the fast cars.
It will seem like an eternity, but the net result when we get to the end of this half hour will be a fascinating finish. So will Brian Scott and Daniel Angus find themselves again fighting for that race win? So Pirelli Porsche action. They're with us for a double header too next weekend, a part of the action at the 69th New Zealand Grand Prix at Cromwell and Highlands. The revs rise, the unmistakable sound of Porsches. Away we go. Good start by Brian Scott, and he'll have the edge, he'll have the nose just in that martini-looking Porsche to lead them, but trying to sneak down the inside. Door gets shut by Brian Scott. Angus had a little look there, didn't he?
And Tim Robinson in that red 944 is leading the rest of the pack over Matt Burton. So those two 944s leading all the boxes. And watch the box to action start now.
Yeah, and Stephen Fang there in 7th is leading the Boxster class. So great to see him out there having another dip and obviously doing a good job. But we go back to the front there. The cup cars have streaked away. Obviously 2 991 Generation 2 cup cars, followed by a pair of 997s. So it's pretty hotly contested at the front there. And as we look back, the rest of the field, they made their way around on this first lap pretty safely. So good to see a nice, clean first lap.
When you have a half-hour race like this, is there a little bit of, you know, from your perspective, when you've been talking to some of the newer racers, those that might be here at Teretonga for the first time, just a patience game? Just make sure that you're in with a position at the end of this. Don't go too hard too early, so to speak.
Oh, look, and especially at the stage of the season, they're thinking about overall points, where it's going to put them in the championship. All that sort of thing comes into it. So, yes, exactly. You can't let that red mist come in and it's not all about one lap, that's for sure.
Third stop on the tour for Pirelli Porsche. Commenced back in October. They were with us, of course, for the opening round of the season at Topor as a part of our season kickoff for the Next Gen NZ Championship presented by Repco. And next weekend, as I said, they'll be a couple of hours down the road at Cromwell for a massive weekend there. So competitors probably got to keep a little bit of that in mind too. You've only got a few days in between time, so you don't want to be taking or nursing something going into the Highlands event.
Yeah, and even there on the first lap, the opening lap, the fastest standing lap was Brian Scott with a 106 dead, and Daniel Angus wasn't too far behind with a 106.5. So pretty close between those guys. Daniel Angus has now actually just eclipsed that and done the fastest lap of the race with a minute dead 0.9. So first car under the 61 second lap time. And so you see the Boxsters and the 944s making their way onto the start-finish line for another lap.
Stu, we have seen quick lap times from the likes of Scott and Angus in the high 50s across the weekend so far. How important for them to sort of get down to those numbers early on before the pit stops?
Yeah, look, very important. That's the critical thing. If those guys at the front want to win this race, they've got to do close to their qualifying lap all the way through. So there you go. There's one guy he's gone past the start-finish line once, so the pit lane is open. He's got a 3-minute and 11-second stop, so he's just in a slightly different class of Cup car. So he thought, right, I'll get that done early. Now, the thing is, you can come in during a safety car. So a lot of them are going to wait for 20 minutes or so, just in case there's some yellow flags, and they can come in.
So Duncan McCrosty was running in the top 4 and has chosen to get that done nice and early. Back we go to Brian Scott. Angus still with the quickest lap of the race so far in the Kensway entry. So those two continue to battle away, and then it's about 2.6 seconds back to Nicholas Cutfield in third. Tim Robinson holding down fourth in the 944.
Yeah, and it's certainly a pretty unique, or, you know, maybe a bit of an alternative sort of way of thinking about the strategy for Duncan McCrosty. That's really early coming in, and, you know, generally in most cases, I think you'd want to try and run as long as you can in the hope that there is a safety car, you know, and try and take advantage of that opportunity. So, you know, hey, it may pay off really well for him, because from when he comes out, he's just going to have clear track after that. But, you know, you'd think he just may be at a little bit of risk if a safety car does end up appearing at some stage in this race.
Exactly, yeah, good thinking. That's most of them are going to hang back a bit just to take advantage of exactly what you just said. But look at these two. They're pushing each other, so they both achieved better lap times than they had before. So it's really feeding off each other, which is so exciting to see.
Yeah, and Brian Scott with the fastest lap on that last lap with a minute dead 0.7, which is just under a 10th off Daniel Angus's fastest time, which is the fastest lap of the race so far. So there's not really a whole lot between those two out of the front. Fingernails, if anything. It's certainly pretty tight. And Daniel Angus is keeping Brian Scott pretty honest. Obviously in the same version of Cup car, so certainly no sort of strengths or weaknesses between them in terms of the vehicle under them.
Exactly, and also this is Brian Scott's home track. So the Martini car you see there, he's done thousands of laps around here. So Daniel Angus was really keen to look at him coming up the inside, filling his mirrors. There wasn't a really serious charge there, but into the pits for Daniel Angus.
Now, I want to put a little question mark here. I don't necessarily want to say this is accurate, but just while you guys were watching that battle coming into the final turn between Scott and Angus, there was a flash on the timing monitor that suggested there may have been a penalty to Brian Scott, but I don't want to consider that as fact until we get it confirmed by Motorsport New Zealand Race Control. And what we will do is take a look, I think, at some point soon via our TV team at a replay of the start. In fact, they've actually, as we see McCrosty leaving the lane, I think we have that replay. So, gentlemen, let's have a look here.
Yeah, he's creeping. So the lights hadn't gone out there. That's definitely going to be a penalty, unfortunately, for Brian Scott.
He was actually still rolling, and so in other words, he didn't roll then stop. He was still rolling, so you're bang on.
Yeah, okay. Clearly maybe just didn't quite get his clutch slip right, and he's maybe just come out of the clutch a little bit too much before those lights had gone out, and the car has definitely crept. So yeah, well, we didn't obviously see the lights when we were seeing that vision, but if the lights were still on at that point, that's a pretty done and dusted penalty, I would say.
So we'll get a bit more detail on that for you if we can. Perhaps even Steve or someone in the lane might verify, but we just get a sense of how severe that penalty is for Brian Scott. Meantime, a couple of very important front-running Porsches in the lane for their compulsory stops. We saw Angus peel in before, now Nicholas Cutfield in too.
It's probably not a bad strategy from Daniel Angus to pit now, because he clearly can't quite do what's needed to get past Brian Scott, so he might as well try and pass Brian Scott through strategy. So obviously if he has a good, as we see there just on the car of Cutfield, bit of smoke coming off the tyre, so those brakes are just obviously very hot, and that's why you roll the car front and back to try and stop any heat spots getting on the pads or the rotors, so that then the braking stays consistent and the discs don't become warped.
Yeah,
but
right. We encourage them to do that, roll them backwards and forwards. They're huge rotors, huge discs, but they carry massive heat. So you roll them backwards and forwards. They can't get an advantage by rolling it all the way down the pit lane. They have to stay roughly where they are.
The only thing with Daniel Angus' strategy that I do wonder a little bit about is you'd almost want to potentially pit a bit later, because when the tyre pressure has come up, you may want to bleed some out. He's coming so early, the tyres may not have even actually come up to pressure completely yet. So then by the time he gets to the end of the race, his times may drop off a little more than they would if he'd stayed out a bit longer.
Well, the only thing is you're not allowed to bleed. You're not allowed to touch the car. So they can't, unlike the GTs, you're not allowed to do that. But I'm wondering if the strategy, he's got Max down there as engineer, he's very, very clever. I'm wondering if the strategy is just get him out of the traffic, because he was following really closely to Brian, and possibly just give him some clear air and put your head down, go as fast as you possibly can.
To try and help the front tyre pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yes.
gentlemen, maybe the decision has been aided by the likelihood of a penalty to his rival Scott here. So maybe that's a little additional factor in that story. Back we go to some of the other action happening here. Matthew Burton.
Neville Chandler in the black car. So because the 944s have got a little bit of an advantage down the straight. So if they can just be a bit easier on the overtaking, they can wait and then just cruise past gently on the straight. So that gives them a big advantage. They're in a different class, of course, and it helps them a lot. Neville Chandler there, been racing a long, long time now. Started doing track days, so sort of your classic sort of stepping up into these cars.
Now, someone who has dropped down the order in the class battle is actually Stephen Fang too, because Ian Hill comfortably in third outright at the moment with a question mark. Obviously, we need pit stops to play out there. But in that inter-Boxster battle, Stephen had dropped back. So there's a little something.
He's been in, though. He's already been in.
Okay, so there you go.
He only had a 15-second stop to do. So he's cleared that. Once again, he's decided to do that early. Once again, I imagine he was in a battle probably, and he thought, let's get out of this battle, clear it, go out with some clear track.
Back we go to Scott.
We see there Scott coming across the line, clicking off another lap. So I'm sure the team have probably just told him to head down and push on and try and, maybe they haven't even informed him about the penalty, but at this point you just want to push on, build as big a gap as you can, and obviously I'm sure they'll be watching to see where Daniel Angus comes out once he comes out of the pits and completes his stop, and he'll be then pushing on very hard to try and drive faster than what Brian Scott is, to try and hopefully eclipse him in the pits when he finally makes his way up. But this is where little things like your pit entries, getting right up to the mark before you turn the pit limiter on, and where you turn the pit limiter off when you're on the exit, but also when the guys tell you to go, when you have to stop on the marks, getting all those things perfect, because you lose a second or 2 seconds just doing that stuff. It's massive margins on the track.
Yeah, bang on. It's very, very important. And we've told them all there's a radar gun down the end, because it's all very well for the cup cars, you just push the button, as you know, for the pit limiter, but the boxes and things have really got to work out the number of revs and things, so it's quite critical to get that right as well.
Hearing from Motorsport New Zealand Race Control that it may be a 10-second time penalty, and is that one of the Boxsters?
Simon Thurlow there,
and that could be that dreaded safety car that everyone was hoping not for.
Let's hope. There's a lot of safe zones here the drivers have told about, where you can pull off. There's about 4 or 5 around here, so hopefully he's found a safe zone and it's not going to interfere with the race with any luck.
That was like an old school Apple computing livery on that machine, isn't it? It's very cool.
Yeah. He gets a lot of teasing about that livery, but as you can probably imagine.
Love it. Back down the main straight, and we've seen the pit stops completed in the last little while for the likes of this car here.
Interesting on your screen there, you see Mark McCorn and Ashton McCorn, position 4 or 5, father and son. And after this morning's race, it's 4 races each to Dad and the son.
And Ashton's pretty quick to tell Dad when he's got the upper hand, but so far, Mark, who's been a champion in this class, has actually had a very good weekend at Teretonga, hasn't he? So squaring the ledger.
Exactly. It's lots of rivalry. They're very good-natured. Everybody teases them about it. But it's great to see these teenagers coming through. That's going to be pretty unique, though. A father and a son in identical cars in the same series.
Yeah, certainly will be. And as you said before, Stu, maybe that car of Thurlow has actually made it to one of those safe zones. So
looks like it.
Yeah, we haven't seen any movement from race control regarding that. So that's at this stage play on. But believe Daniel Angus had made his way back out, so he's now circulating again, and as so is Nicholas Cupfield. There's about an 11-second gap between those two, so obviously that's that difference in compulsory stop time.
Exactly.
Let's get some news from the lane. Here's Stephen McIver.
I've been talking to the team from Action Motorsport who are looking after Brian Scott, and I said, did you know there's a penalty? We think there might be a penalty here, but we looked at it and he wasn't ahead of Daniel Angus before the start line, but basically he simply said, you know what? I'm not going to tell him anything. Why ruin a driver's day?
Well, it might just be on the improve because the Supra safety car is headed out just as Brian Scott and the Action Motorsport crew have got him in for the compulsory stop. Now, we know that there is a potential 10-second time penalty to be added to this. Hearing from Andrew Waite as well that he's been doing some driver coaching with Stephen Fang, and he feels like they might be in a great position now in the Boxster class care of this safety car. So there's a few people that might be set to benefit from this.
But that right there is exactly what we were talking about, that alternate strategy that McCrosty and Cupfield and Daniel Angus all went on, pitting under that green very early. It's just going to play massively into the hands of Brian Scott because he's gone in at the perfect time, just when the safety car has commenced. So everyone else has to slow down to the safety car safe speed, and he's just sitting there kicking goals and scoring all this free time. So he's going to come out. He's going to come out with a pretty sizable gap by the time, if the safety car's still out, while he makes his way out of the pits.
Yeah, look, that's a massive advantage, and I'm surprised some of the others didn't take it, but we've all talked about it. Now, there's Mark McCaw now just leaving the pits, so that's worked in his favour as well. In fact, a few of the boxes have just timed that beautifully. Look at that.
So this is a quick recovery here by the team from the Southland Sports Car Club, and the Supra safety car, the lights are already out. It's in the lane. We're set to go racing once again. Simon Thurlow out of harm's way. Once Brian Scott completes that stop, it is now kind of partly under safety car, partly under green conditions for him. So there you can see him in the background, in the lane, still completing the stop.
Yeah, pretty significant advantage still, though.
What's that writing on the? Is it?
I think that says
Pig?
Battle Pig. Yeah, actually, Nick Gladiatus, who's running that car, he used to be my mechanic in '86, and he used to write the same thing on my tyres. So he's having fun with it at least. He's a great guy down there, very, very wise, been around a long time. So
is that a shareable story on air, or is it just something fun?
No, definitely fun.
Was that referring to you or the car?
Yes.
Oh, it must be either he sees Brian in the same vein, or it's just one of his little things. So no, very, very cool to see them obviously working very well together. That car's been really fast all weekend, and we see there Brian actually hasn't actually lost a lot of time. He's still in second at the moment. He's probably still got a little bit of time to go on that stop, but even still, that time under yellow, the speed you're going under a safety car versus what you're going at full green flag capacity, that's going to make a huge difference at the end of it, especially if he does have a penalty at the end to add on to his race time.
Well, they may, I guess that's it. I'll have to have that on at the end. It's not the drive for anything else like that, so he'll just keep going, put his head down and go for it.
Bit has unfolded in this Pirelli Porsche New Zealand third race of the weekend. Half an hour of action, 15 minutes just under to go in this one, and Mark McCaw is at the top of the order from Chris Taylor. And it's Ashton McCaw, Stephen Fang. So the boxers are well placed at the moment, but you can see some of the faster spec 911 starting to try and side their way through the field.
Yeah, we see there the 86 car coming around Mark McCaw onto the front straight, and that livery on the front of it there, it's a bit sort of almost familiar towards the Rexy, the Le Mans spec Porsche, or even the early 2000s Spa 24-hour winning Porsche Carrera Cup car. It's quite a cool little livery there on the front of that car. We see there a moustache on the front of that one.
That's the son's car. That's Ashton's car. So I say it's as flash as a rat with a gold tooth.
Yeah, it's...
There's the son Ashton, there's you say, a little moustache on there, but there's Brian coming through. Now, these boxes are pretty quick through these parts, and it's not that easy for the Cup cars to get past. It's sort of almost one lane through there, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, and Brian's there disposed of Ashton as he goes after the next of the Boxsters there, the 101 car. Yeah, Chris Taylor, the almost John Player special Team Lotus-like livery on that car. Looks really, really smart with the gold wheels there. As we see there, Brian's been quite cautious there, giving him heaps of room and making his way through, putting the power down in that 991 Generation 2 Cup car.
But it's a cooperative thing, though, you know, between the Boxsters and the Cup cars. You know, the Boxsters have got to decide, is it better to ease back, get out of the way for a moment, let them go, rather than interfering with their race, and the Cup cars decide the same thing. There's a lot of interaction going on there. There's Ian Hill in the background. He's doing his 15 seconds there in the pits.
Yeah, and I think Brian Scott's only just come out ahead of Duncombe across there. It's about 5 seconds, but I have a feeling that gap's going to increase, and he's miles ahead of Daniel Angus and Nicholas Cutfield. So he's certainly been the guy that's benefited the most from that safety car, and it's certainly going to play a part in whether he ends up winning this race or not. Obviously, there's that black mark next to his name, considering whether he's going to have a penalty or not. But either way, he's in a prime position right now to still go on ahead and take the victory.
So a little birdie from Motorsport New Zealand tells us that there will be a hearing in relation to that alleged jump start or awkward. And that's dramas there for Ian Hill in the lane in the Boxster.
Something has gone wrong. He's out of the car. Hopefully, Stephen will be able to figure out what's happening down there for us.
We'll get onto that. Meanwhile, look at the damage to the right front of the 777. Tim Robinson, in that first-hand coffee entry, was running in the top 5. There's clearly been a coming together there somewhere, and he's out of the game.
And that's our class leader for the 944 class. He was lining himself up to win the entire championship, which he can do from any class. So this is devastating for Tim. He won't be happy about that.
Yeah, that's not a very good looking 944 there. It's looking pretty sad there in the front. That's had a huge hit with another competitor by the looks of it. Looks like there were some tyre marks on the front of the door there, so not ideal. But let's head down to the lane and hear from Stephen.
Well, Ian Hill podium last time race when leading the Boxer class, and now your little Porsche's dead. What's up?
Don't know. If I knew, we'd be back out there. But as they say, and they keep telling me, it's racing, right?
Did it just stop?
Just stop. And I come in, so we can't get it going again. So we're standing talking to you.
Maybe it's just tired.
I think it is. A bit old, right? It's been thrashed here today.
Enjoy it, mate. Thanks.
Thank you.
And while Stephen was chatting away there, have we got a problem for Matthew Burton? Is that car slowing? There's some smoke coming from that car. Is that the reason why? Look at the left front of this car. So maybe that's the other part of the story in relation to Tim Robinson. Possibly. And we're hearing red flag now. Red flag here in the Pirelli Porsche.
Presumably that's for Tim stopped on the track somewhere. I'm not sure.
That seems a bit strange. You'd think it would just be a safety car for Tim's
the
situation.
Fire
So
crew are being scrambled in front of us there.
I reckon something else has happened around the circuit that we actually haven't.
That's
very
not good.
Potentially
very
seen
good
yet.
team that will go to work here. So you can see some marks through the trap there and some tyres up on the grass. So
I think
perhaps
they were from the GR86
crash. Well done. Yeah. So look at the damage to the right front and the awkward camber on that 944. Little wonder that Tim Robinson's parked up there. Real shame. He'd had a fantastic weekend in this class, hadn't he?
Well, bear in mind, as you've already said it a couple of times, Greg, these cars have got to make it for the next round, next weekend. That's going to take a fair bit of fixing by the looks of it.
Oh, and they're a long way from Hawke's Bay, where he hails from too. So as we've seen some of the competitors do, I mean, there's great camaraderie in this class, so people will naturally help one another where they can. But some have even opted to go to Christchurch in between and try and repair the cars. And that's quite a mission, Stu, from here, isn't it? All the way back up to Christchurch, back down again to Cromwell for next weekend's.
Yep. It's big mileage.
Yeah.
But you see the little LG logo on the front of that 944. That's LG Motorsport, and they've got a crew down here. And they'll have all sorts of bits and pieces with them. I can't imagine they have spare front guards and things like that. They can probably be whacked out. It's just a matter of what damage. There we go.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's obviously, it's caught the grass on fire, which I don't think's that unknown down here, is it? With that dry grass.
Very quickly, the recovery teams here and those that work as volunteers, courtesy of the Southland Sports Car Club and the organisers of the Next Gen NZ Championship, just want to make sure we look after the venue naturally. And hopefully we'll be back underway and racing very shortly. So we've neutralised the game. Everyone bunches up, but there is a bit to unpack from this, given the length of the stop for Brian Scott. Just to reiterate something we said before too, we understand that there will be a review, a hearing, if you like, into the alleged jump start that we saw in that replay before for him after this race is wrapped up.
Yeah, and we were talking about, you know, the advantage that he gained through that pit stop that was partly under that safety car, and that's pretty much all eroded now after that red flag. So he does have track position though. He's ahead of Duncan McCrosty, Nicholas Cutfield, and Daniel Angus, but that margin, that sort of safety cushion that he had over those guys and those other Cup cars up to that point is now gone, and all 4 of those cars, ironically, are actually nose to tail again.
The other thing to take into account here, these are time-certain races, so whether we will actually get that 10.5 minutes left, that could have a big influence on the outcome of this race as well, of course.
Okay, so Stu, just talking about the potential for a time-certain finish here. The clock has frozen, as you can see on our totem left of your screen. In theory, 10.5 minutes left in the race, and we'll wait for them to cross the actual line when we hopefully get a restart here too, to confirm who's chalked up what in relation to the laps, how many laps, because some competitors may still be, particularly our faster ones from the back, endeavouring to unlap themselves given the length of the stops that they have had. So,
well, you can see Daniel Angus there right at the very back, so he's got to get through a lot of traffic to work his way up. There he is rolling forward there.
Pretty striking livery on that car. It's pretty good looking machine, but yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting once we get this race going again. We've still got 10.5 minutes on the race clock, so still plenty of time, plenty of opportunity for some good racing, and for some of these guys to try and take advantage of this situation and try and move forward.
Kensway, in addition to Pirelli, great supporters of this championship, aren't they? From project management, civil work, and so on, Stu.
Yes, yeah, like he's a long time. So it looks like they're reshuffling the grid here. But yes, Kensway, you can see all the cars. You can see on that one there, the Kensway sticker on the front. They've all got that, so a big supporter. See they're doing a bit of reshuffling down on the grid there, moving him up, trying to get them back into some sort of order that they should have been in, perhaps. Quite sure what's going on there.
Yeah, a bit of a strange one there.
Yeah. But at least Daniel Angus hasn't got so many of the little Boxsters to go past. And of course, with a massive horsepower advantage, I think there's about a 300 horsepower difference there between the Cup cars and the Boxsters. So it should be fairly easy to shoot past as soon as they roll around and those lights go green. And there's some more reshuffling we can see going on there.
Some amazing stories in this category. Stephen Fang, who's doing a great job in the Boxster. We've been talking about that across the weekend. It's only a couple of years ago that he learned to drive a manual car, and you know, passionate about cars and has loved being a part of this championship. And I think Nicholas Cutfield had initially a love of motorcycles, but then made the switch to 4 wheels, competed in the very first generation or specification of Carrera Cup car, but has now moved to this one, and he too is loving his time in this championship.
Oh, look, he as you say, another passionate one. But yeah, fairly new in terms of experience compared to some of these. He's a dentist from the Hawke's Bay. Yeah, so we always say good at extracting some good lap times. That's terrible, isn't it? Yeah.
Very good, very good. So with the dramas too for Tim Robinson, we probably need to keep an eye on the revised situation for the 944 competitors. So we set off behind the safety car. Let's keep a little eye on the lights on that, and hopefully we'll be back underway. So timing, you'll note, has reset here. So we've got a 4-minute sprint by the looks of it. So the clock is back underway. So to Stu's point, just in relation to the stoppage and trying to keep our big Sunday schedule here at Teretonga Park Raceway on track, because we've got the Castrol Toyota Formula Regional Oceania Championship to come, or 86 racing, and a big 1-hour race for Somerset GT2. So this is going to be an epic sprint by the looks of it. What will happen here? Races within the race as well. Hopefully lights will be out fairly promptly here, and that Supra will accelerate away. Brian Scott will lead the field, but when you've got some fast competitors behind him on the march, the likes of McCrosty and Cutfield and more. There you go, lights are out. So we're about to go racing. 3 frantic, fun, exciting minutes in Pirelli Porsche New Zealand.
Boy, if you're one of those Boxsters like Mark McCorn, you want to put your head down, wouldn't you? Just move out of the way, because those Cup cars are going to be on the charge.
And we've got the green lights, so the races restarted, and we see there the Cup car of Daniel Angus just hauling past all the little wee Boxsters, and Brian Scott there in the background trying to do the same. So we're going to have a flurry of Boxsters that he's trying to drive around the outside of there. We see Stephen Fang there.
This is Auckland motorway traffic, isn't it?
I'm just wondering if there's a scenario with the timing here too. It says, as you can quite clearly see, Brian Scott to the lead from Duncan McCrosty and Nicholas Cutfield, but I think from a lap perspective and with that reordering on the grid, I'm not 100% certain of that. So we'll just put a little question mark on that for now. In the meantime, McCorn is busy, and that's because Ashton McCorn is in the chase as well. So the father-son battle is a little one to think about. This gaggle of Boxsters, including Fang. Look down the inside, big lunge from the 97. Ashton says, Mark, Dad, I'm coming through.
And Chris Taylor took advantage of that too and followed him through in the little black JPS car.
Brian Scott down the inside, clearing all those Boxsters and the rest of the chasing pack. Now he's setting after Daniel Angus, who's a fair way up the front straight there here at Teretonga.
Nick Tuffield also blasting down the inside of those Boxsters as well. And there's Duncan McCrosty. So all of those now have cleared. So there's only a minute and a half to go. So they've cleared all that traffic. So it's going to be pretty clean laps of these guys.
So just sort of rewinding in my mind prior to the safety car period and the stoppage, let's not forget that Brian Scott, despite that penalty that will be added to the end of this race potentially, he went alternate on the strategy, as you and Ronan have talked about. He went long, he came in when the safety car happened and so on. So that advantage that he might have built up at that stage relative to Cutfield, McCrosty and so on could be working in his favour at this point in time.
Well, to be honest though, Rusty, the interesting thing that's going to be in this scenario is if Brian Scott does end up with a penalty, that would effectively put Nicholas Cutfield in the lead right now.
Correct.
So
exactly.
Depending on obviously the extent of the penalty, but certainly right now it's looking like the 997s are in a pretty favourable position. And as you see, everyone else coming across the line. It was a bit weird. Daniel Angus popped up near the top of the timings for a bit there, and now he's dropped back down. So not entirely sure what's going on there, but his pace is really good at the moment. He was the only car to do a under 61 second lap time that last time around.
Now, for the record, I've not been playing with the watch, but the graphic has changed, and so that's not from our team. That's what we've been advised. So it reset again. So we have 4 minutes remaining. There's been a reset on the available amount of time for the remainder of this race. So the bit going on for us with limited grey matter to kind of digest here at the moment. Meanwhile, Cutfield, perhaps mindful of the potential penalty here for Brian Scott, senses an opportunity.
He's going for it. He really is aggressive there, isn't he?
Sure is.
Racing hard.
Checkered flag at the ready here. So now we're being told this is game over by the looks of it. So checkered flag waves. We'll get final confirmation on it for you, because there's a bit of chit-chat as the 65 goes into the wall. So Neville Chandler, how did that happen?
We're not really sure where that is, but he's a long way off the track there.
Potential that Chris Taylor looks like he might have won the battle of the Boxsters from Ashton McCorn, then Mark McCorn, Neville Chandler and Stephen Fang. But we will get an official word for you and mention it as our broadcast continues here on the Stuff Speed Hub this afternoon, because there's a bit to unpack from that one, particularly with the likelihood of a penalty for Brian Scott, if indeed they do adjudicate that start was not executed properly.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that might have something to do what's happened to the 65
Daniel
car.
Angus with the quickest lap of the race, but look at that right rear.
So has that just come off the wheel, or was
I wonder, to Ronan's point, if the reason that we've seen the Boxster perhaps off into just lightly into that tyre bundle, have these two come together in the traffic maybe?
Good call.
Yeah, and he set the fastest lap of the race, but may have gone out in a blaze of glory with that damage there.
So let's call these provisional results after half an hour for you of Pirelli, Porsche, racing. Brian Scott greets the checkered flag. Nicholas Cutfield potentially taking it out if there is a penalty applied to the 53. Nice bit of driving by Duncan McCrosty too. And Chris Taylor rounds out your top four. Now, Taylor is the first by that result there of the Boxsters. So great result with that JPS livery. And it was quite a fight too. Unfortunate for Tim Robinson in the 944. Problems also for Matthew Burton, and only a week to turn things around. Highlights for you of the final one of the weekend. Creeping at the start. Could that be a penalty for Brian Scott? It didn't look like it was executed perhaps the way that it should be. As they headed off, Daniel Angus was in the chase. There would be some lengthy pit stops to take place in this half an hour of competition. Some mandated pit stop times for the faster competitors that were quite lengthy. Off went Simon Thurlow in the Apple-inspired Boxster, which would bring out the safety car. Scott took that opportunity and dived in after having led the race and built quite a lead to eventually get his stop done. Look at the damage to the right front of the then leader in the 944 class of Tim Robinson. Dramas as well for Matthew Burton. The field bunched up for what would ultimately be, after a stoppage, a crazy run to the checkered flag. Brian Scott would be the first to greet it. A bit went on behind him. Chris Taylor would ultimately take fourth place and best of the Boxsters as this happened within sight of the finish. Unfortunately for Neville Chandler, Scott home first from Cutfield and McCrosty, but it may be Cutfield who ultimately takes it out. So spare a little thought for the organisers down there in our victory lane area. We've brought them in as they've crossed the line and as they've completed things in terms of class results for you as well. Massive afternoon to come your way here on the Stuff Speed Hub. Let your mates know about it for those that are listening to us around the venue but have got friends perhaps watching elsewhere in New Zealand. We had a message yesterday, in fact, from Max Pappas watching in the United States. So g'day to Max. He was wishing Nikita Johnson well for the CT Frock races later this afternoon. So you can watch, live stream the action, of course, all as a part of the Stuff Speed Hub. stuff.co.nz/Speed Hub. Brian Scott getting out of the car. It's all smiles for now. Hopefully it stays that way for him. Pretty good weekend of racing as Nathan Pilcher comes in to say congratulations. I think Brian's his stepdad too, actually. So there you go. Really cool. Let's go to Stephen McIver there.
Happy days. That's sort of 2 for 2 because we're talking about, right. So the potential creeping we've seen, there might be a little bit of a penalty on that one.
Yeah, well, I sat back in the box 2 feet, so because she does creep a bit. And
the car has a life of its own.
It seems to, yes. But I'm very, very pleased with how it's gone this weekend. It's my first away with Porsches, and I normally race in Oscars. And but having the team helping me, and Nick, what a great job he's done. And I was wondering if the body would hope I get a pension and I win, so I'm very happy this year.
Mate, you're a winner, chicken dinner. Well done, well played.
Thank you very much.
And Nicholas Cutfield in P2, which could actually, you can move on over there, pal, and get your water. Potentially P1 after the hearing, but good race, man.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, really pleased with that. It's a new car for me and a new track too, so we were learning a lot this weekend.
These are a hell of a machine to race, right? And when you have to face yourself with a new track, what goes through your mind on those practice laps when you start practicing?
Yeah, plenty of nerves for sure. I don't know if you saw race 1, but I actually had a stall on the start line. So we made sure race 2 and 3 that we gave it plenty of revs. Might have left a few licorice strips out there. But I think we gelled with the car this weekend, so I'm really pleased.
Congratulations on a potential P1, okay?
See how it plays out, eh?
All right, mate. There you go.
Thanks, mate.
Okay.